10, 9, ignition sequence start. All engines are running.
The clock is operating. We're underway.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And just like the red thingy moving towards the green thingy, we move right into episode 14 of Kerbalcast. Never give up, never surrender.
Oh, that's not right.
I am your LMP, that's Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, and with us as always, our CMP, Command Module Pilot
Nostromo.
Coming up in today's program, we'll update you on our progress within the game.
We have your letters in the crew report.
And we introduce a brand new feature this week, Dark Mushrooms, Dark Matter,
where one of our listeners goes in-depth in part of Kerbal Space Program.
We'll also have the latest on our news headlines with this week's mission briefing and another edition of
As the Kerbin Turns.
And this week's But I Digress,
Galaxy Quest.
Galaxy Quest, never give up, never surrender, which you have never seen.
Not until this podcast.
As always, have you noticed you and I have that? We do that. It's like you've seen a movie and I haven't, so you tell me to watch it,
Yeah.
and then vice versa.
Yeah, and so it's like, oh, I've seen this movie so many times.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I saw it right before I got here.
Well, we'll talk about it as we get into it. You're feeling okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I am all the way out of it.
You're all the way out of it.
Yeah, I'm feeling great.
You're feeling good.
Yep, passed it off to my girlfriend. She's the one who's sick now, and we're all good.
Well, good, as long as she's the one that's sick.
There we go.
I do want to say right up front, we passed a milestone back on Sunday. 10,000 total downloads.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man, you guys are just ramping us up through there.
Yeah.
We don't have a soundbite for that one. I mean, the other soundbite still applies. It is over 9,000, but
it's over 9,000. Yeah, we did last week when we went over 9,000, and when I told Nos that, he said, "You do realize that's a meme, right?"
Yeah, that's a thing. You got to look that up.
I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so we threw it into the podcast. But anyway, we were over 9,000 a week ago. Now we're over 10,000.
Yeah, you guys are just like rocketing us straight up there.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, we love it.
That was on it. It was one of those things where I kept looking at the total downloads.
Uh-huh.
And I kept going, yeah, we're getting close. Yeah, we're getting close. And when I checked it Sunday, I figured, well, it's going to be, yeah, we're getting close. And I looked at it and it was 10,019.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what? So anyway, yes.
Yeah.
Well, tell me your progress in the game.
So anyone who's been following our Twitter saw part of my progress report already.
Yes.
I'll go to that in a bit.
Demented.
So the first thing I'll say is that I've just been doing some contracts but really the highlight is I was
the mega rolling.
Last week we talked about I talked about the rolly, which is just two command pods connected by a girder, and you roll around the planet collecting surface samples.
I have to do it. Every time you talk about this, this starts running through my brain, so I have to do it. I'm looking for my missing piece. I'm looking for my missing piece. So fleece my knees and grease my bees. I'm looking for my missing piece.
Nice. So I just made the rolly, and I was like, this could be improved. And we talked about the swimmy, where it's covered in fins.
Yeah.
It doesn't float. It does not float.
It doesn't propel or anything?
I can't say it doesn't float. I never managed to get it anywhere close to the water.
Oh,
because you can't.
So you don't know?
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody could prove me wrong. And hey, on Twitter, send us a screen cap if you get it into the water. Okay, so trying to get that thing moving, the fins are too far apart to actually get anything going. And I didn't experiment with it too much from that. They're not close enough to make a wheel shape.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
And so they just kind of sat.
Did they make that sound?
If it did, I probably would have tried it longer.
That's like Bert and Ernie.
Yeah. So I wanted to go big or go home.
Yeah.
And so I made the Mega Rolly, which originally it was a command pod with a girder on the bottom of it, connected to a fuel cell with girders coming out of the left and right sides, which went into another fuel cell, and then there was a 6-symmetry set of girders with command pods on the outside of them. So basically, I just made this giant, 2 mini Ferris wheels of command pods. You've
heard the story about the blind men with the elephant? That's how I felt trying to decipher the picture that you put on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
Because I was looking at it on my phone.
Yeah.
And I would like zoom into one section.
It wasn't the
and then
greatest picture. I should have waited till the sun was up, like, because it was like setting.
Because I kept looking at it going, what is this?
Yeah, and so that was the original, and I just tried to get it to propel itself just by, rocking back and forth.
Right.
Well, I didn't have girders on that one, so it was like these little wobbly legs. And so then I was like, okay, girders, let's put girders on it. And I also added those thrusters,
Right.
that were pointing in
Opposite directions.
yeah, and
or,
to make it give it a circular motion. And I would do that, but it actually wasn't moving a whole lot. Like, not as much as I thought it would. But then I realized you needed
I wouldn't
to...
have expected it to. I would have expected it to move in like all directions at once after it exploded.
So I removed the struts that were attached to the boosters.
Mm-hmm.
So those boosters would hit, and it would cause the girders to bend a little,
Right.
which gave it more forward momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that still wasn't enough. We had to go all out. So we added even more.
So it
thrusters
wasn't
on
the rolly, it was the wobbly.
Yeah, it was the wobbly. So, but the wheels were now strutted. Okay, you remember last week I was talking about, I was trying to make something that you could put another, it had 2 seats in it, but one was
Right,
empty.
right.
And every time I went to go modify it, a Kerbal hopped in the empty seat. This was a sign that no matter how high the stupidity level is,
Yeah.
there's still a level of common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time I went back to modify it, no one jumped in any seats. There was
They're like, we're good.
yeah, there was the main seat, which is in the center of the wheel, but all the other seats, nobody would hop in them. I had to go each time and fill them each time I modified it, which actually makes a big difference. So the wheel would move faster without any Kerbals in those command pods that made up the wheels, because the only part that touched the ground were the command pods.
Right.
But it had less durability. Yeah. So the hardest part.
Explain.
The hardest part was getting it, because there's 2 ways that you could roll off of there.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to just go W or S to roll.
Okay.
There's 2 ways you could go, and one leads straight to a building. The
Mm-hmm.
other leads to the ocean, and that was my big goal. I'm going to get it in the ocean. It's not going to float, but I want it rolling at the bottom of the ocean. And you would have to get it over that little drop off.
Right.
If you didn't have any Kerbals in the command pods, once it fell, some of the command pods would pop off.
Oh, okay.
And
So
even
that's what you mean by durability.
even with struts or anything like that. And the way I figured it is, as it moved, it was taking an impact on those command pods each time they touched the ground. So like the game was reading it as an impact, but not enough of an impact to destroy it.
Okay.
So as these things continued to roll. Now the problem was, if you continue to roll like that, it would veer left sometimes. And whenever it would veer left, it would go toward the runway just a little bit. And the runway has a slight incline on it. And whenever the command pods hit there, they hit at slightly faster and sooner than they normally did. And most of the time it would destroy the command pods and you'd lose your wheel.
I'm going to ask the same question that I asked last week.
Yeah.
At any point, did you ever get off the ground?
Wait, in like my whole progress report?
Yes.
Yeah, I was working on contracts and I was like,
Oh, okay.
I was trying to do my Moonlander, but this is the good stuff. So
Oh, this is the good
yeah,
stuff.
this is the good
Okay.
stuff. So I found out that having a Kerbal inside the pod increases the pod's durability.
You know why that is, don't you? Because every time a crack appears, they put some duct tape on it.
Yeah, and they absorb most of the impact
Yeah.
anytime it rocks around. So I found out that also it could continue to roll like that. You just manage the speed and the amount of impact, and it would control the durability. So then I had to control the veer left problem. So they have the single monopropellant RCS.
Right.
I was putting that on all of the ones on the left side. So as I was rolling forward with the boosters, I'd turn on the RCS and just give the other side a little boost to steer it, and I made it in the water. And you know how much?
But this is not the one with the paddles.
No, this was not the one with the paddles. This one sank. It just
Okay.
sank. Now I will say this: every time I messed up, I killed 13 Kerbals.
Okay.
Because that's how many were in the command pods.
Right.
I reverted because, like, these things, the Mega Rolly is not cheap. It is not cheap. But every time it happened,
Oh, you're not doing this in Sandbox?
no, I was doing this in career. Every time it happened, every time 13 Kerbals died, you would look at your reputation, and it would drop by maybe half of an inch,
Okay.
which isn't a whole lot
You're talking about on the you're talking about the
on the reputation meter.
but you're talking about the little notations on the meter itself.
Yeah, like if
I mean, not like on your screen.
if you were to
would
measure
go-
it on the
okay.
screen, it would like have like 1 or 2 centimeters or something.
Okay.
It didn't move a whole lot.
I was going to say, I just had this image of, like your Rolly would explode and then you'd look up and the reputation meter would go, ew.
No, it hardly moved at all.
Yeah.
Like honestly,
So but you were saying half an inch. So I was, I was thinking like some dramatic, like,
no, it was like nothing.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
I would have had to. I could have made up for it by doing 1 or 2 contracts.
okay.
Killing 13 Kerbals and wasting a ton of company money making a giant like windmill full of corpses, and it was like hardly
Yeah,
consequential. I was
yeah.
like, oh, well, someday reputation,
Well,
someday.
it's a government job. What can
Yeah, there you go. But it was a ton of fun. So I think we may have the Rolly beauty contest.
The Rolly beauty
Yeah,
contest.
if it can roll off of the landing pad and make it into the water completely intact, and whichever one looks coolest.
It's funny that you say that because I have a challenge for the listeners as well.
Oh, what is that?
I got a challenge. We're into my progress report.
Okay.
I got a challenge. I guess it was a week ago today. You remember last time we talked, I told you that I was messing around with docking hatches, docking ports, and
Yeah.
grabbers.
With like non-mod
Yeah.
securing.
And I was building things in orbit. And I told you I wasn't building anything with the intention of actually building something I could use. I was just experimenting.
Yeah, it's kind of like you want to see how many command pods you can
Yeah.
put on something and roll into the ocean.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, not. I wasn't up to that level of creativity. But no, I got about a week ago today. I got an email from one of our listeners, and I actually got 2. I'm going to read the first one now, and then I'm going to read the second one during the crew report.
Okay.
Because this is the beginning and the other one is the end. He sent me an email and he said, I have a challenge for both of you, but mainly for Biff, because he figured you were too busy messing with your wobblies and your rollies and your splashies. This challenge has no limits, but instead is a test of skill. Many have landed on the planets of the Kerbal system, but how many can you land on in one flight?
Oh.
Rules.
Yeah, there's a reason that challenge wasn't for me.
Rules. You have to plant a flag on the planet. You may send a second ship to refuel the first. The original ship must land at or close to the space center. And you have until the next podcast.
Oh, so you had to make it back home after doing all this?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was all how far can you
And you
get?
said a second ship to refuel the first. Like you only
Yeah,
get,
you can.
you only get one refuel?
No,
or-
no.
Okay.
I mean, you can refuel as much as you want.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's my reading of the
Yeah,
rules.
your interpretation.
Because he didn't say you can only do it once.
Yeah.
No, he was saying you can send a second ship and refuel the first.
Uh-huh.
And I will, during the crew report, because he sent me a detailed step-by-step progress report of how far he got.
Oh, okay.
And I'll read that during the crew report. But anyway, so he sent me this challenge about a week ago. And I looked at what I already had in orbit, and I thought to myself, okay, what can I do to what I already have in orbit to accommodate this challenge? And I realized, okay, what I basically need is to add another stage to it that actually had some engines on it.
Uh-huh.
And I looked at it and I said, I can make like an interplanetary ship. And there is, by the way, this is one of those instructive comments. This is going to be an instructive progress report because I learned something very important that I am going to impart upon our listenership.
Oh, okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so I already had, this is what I had in orbit already. I had, the really big fuel tanks, the ones that are white and they have the black stripes at the top and bottom.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, well, I had a center that had 2 of those together.
Mm-hmm.
Coming off of those, I had 4 girders symmetrically spaced a quarter apart. And on the end of those girders, I had docking hatches. And then at the far end of the tanks, I had grabbers. And
Got
the
it.
idea was that I could park individual tanks.
Uh-huh.
Now, at this point, I had already docked on, like, I'll just say the left side. Let's just say left
Okay.
and right
Yeah.
for ease.
Let's say port and starboard.
Okay, port and starboard.
There we go.
Who lives
Well,
in a
they're-
pineapple under the sea?
they're ships.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand. Anyway, okay, so on the port side, I had docked another 2 fuel tanks, same size, the white with the black stripes.
Uh-huh.
They had RCS, but they did not have a big engine.
Okay.
Okay, and at the bottom of it, it had one of the mega gigantic docking ports.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And on the starboard side, I had docked another one like that. Okay, so altogether, there were 6 tanks. There were 3 rows of 2 tanks.
Yeah.
Okay, and all of them were terminating in the mega gigantic docking ports.
Uh-huh.
So I thought to myself, okay, what I need to do is I need to dock 3 more, 3 more double tanks, and this time have them on engines.
Yeah.
And at the front of them with the gigantic mega docking ports. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so by the time I got done constructing this thing, it was 3 rows of 4 tanks each. So 12 tanks total.
Man.
Yeah. Oh, this thing was massive.
Yeah.
And what I decided was, because like I said, when I started this, there was no intention of actually using this for anything.
Uh-huh.
So what I decided was, because my initial idea was that I would literally have, this thing would literally be 4, it would be in 4s.
Uh-huh.
Well, what I decided was I'm going to use the other 2 girders and docking ports, and I'm going to put 2 landers on those. One top, one bottom. That way it would be, weighted.
Yeah.
It was a little nose heavy, but the whole thing stayed together. It worked like it was supposed to.
Wow.
Massive amount of fuel. The thing was it was a work of art. When I locked that last lander in place, and we're talking 8 total rendezvous at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was quite a bit of time building this thing. And I was thinking to myself, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the challenge. I'm going to do Mun, I'm going to do Minmus, and then I'm going to do Duna. And I might do, I think, Ike is Duna's moon, I think. I'm not positive.
Oh, so moon's counted?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was just
Yeah.
planets.
I was going to do that, and then I was going to come home because I had so much fuel, and I was going to do it. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, here's the learning part. There is this concept that I was unaware of weight and mass.
Uh-huh.
When I had the final lander in place, and I was in the launch, when I was aligned to go to the Mun,
Yeah.
I fired the engines. Okay, like I said, a little bit nose heavy, so I had to keep kind of correcting. I had to, keep bringing the nose up a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But I'm burning the engines. The fuel levels are barely nudging. They're barely budging at all. I am just, I'm just going. And this is like the Battlestar Galactica, right? This thing is huge.
Go on.
Yeah. And I'm burning and I'm burning and I'm burning. I hit the M key and I look and my little round orbital shape is just barely changing into an oval. And so I'm burning and I'm burning and I'm burning. And then I go back to M and I'm still just barely at an oval. And I burn some more and burn some more. It finally, after burning for a very long length of time, I suddenly realized that this thing was so big and so heavy that my engines, the engines that I had put on there, were not adequate to push this bulk. Because I always, mistakenly, and you remember I told you that, we're learning and we're going to, when we make mistakes, we're going to admit it.
Yeah.
One of my kind of flaws in my thinking is I've always thought of weight and mass as an atmosphere thing.
Yeah.
I always kind of thought of it as, once I got into space,
Uh-huh.
like that didn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
Well, now I've learned No.
Yeah, you still have inertia.
Yeah, well, I mean, you still have, I mean, you've got a certain amount of mass and you've got a certain amount of weight, and you've got to be able to push it.
Mm-hmm.
And I built, when I was building this thing, I was building it like I would build a normal spacecraft. So I put the smaller engines on it, the 220 thrust, the little poodles.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking that once I was up in space, you know, that would be fine. No. Now I realize, when you've got 12 tanks of fuel, 12 mega gigantic tanks of fuel.
You may want something with a kick.
Yeah. You need something with more thrust to push that much weight and that much mass. So I kind of learned after several hours of building this thing, what I ended up with was a very nice floating fuel station.
Well, it still has a function.
Yeah, it was a lesson well learned, but that's what I spent most of the week. I almost said wasted, but that's not true.
It's still up there, and it still can be used.
Well, technically, it's not still up there because once I realized that this thing wasn't going anywhere.
Oh no!
And it was also, so many different pieces. The computer would start to slow down.
Yeah.
So what I did was I thought, I have spent so much time building this thing. I want to watch it burn up. And for some reason it deorbited just fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, when it finally got into the atmosphere, it just kind of.
Could you have decoupled or not decoupled?
Oh sure,
yeah.
I could have put more bigger engines on it.
Yeah, and
but
just set up a new tanker with engines on it and had to just keep borrowing fuel.
But you see, at this point, I think it was either Friday or Saturday when this happened. Okay, so by this point, I had spent most of the week building this thing, thinking that once I got it constructed, it was going to be a straight shot.
Yeah.
Mon, Minmus, Duna, Ike, back home, woohoo! I'd done the challenge. I did it. Woohoo! So at that point, it was okay. I'm gonna make something actually smaller.
Yeah.
I'm gonna build a ship that I'm actually used to. And I got it right off the ground, and I went to Mun, landed there. I did the flag. I took a screenshot. I got all the way back. I had refueled, and I was about to head for Minmus, and that's when we did the podcast. So
okay.
So anyway, I lost the challenge because the furthest I made it was the Mun. But what I'm going to do, it's a good idea.
So you want to do a round 2?
Well, what I want to do is I'm challenging our listeners. I want you guys to do the same challenge. Okay? The same challenge that I did. And I'm going to try it again this week. I'm going to start fresh. But what I want is everybody to do the challenge with us. And send us your progress. Send us screenshots or tweet your screenshots or email them to us or if you want to just write up progress reports. How many planets or planets or moons?
How many bodies?
How many bodies can you land on?
Not Kerbal bodies.
Yeah.
How many?
Well,
how many surfaces? No.
This is the Shay challenge. Okay. How many? Let's see. How many can you land on in one flight? And you can refuel during the flight. You can do refueling stops. You have to plant a flag on the planet. And then you have to land at or close to the Space Center. And you have until 1 week, basically.
Yeah.
So let us know how far you get. And when we get to the crew report, I will read Shay's progress report, how far he got. What I thought was funny was he assumed when he sent me his progress report, he said, I assume that you have easily beaten me. And it's like, oh no. No, because unlike you, I spent the week messing around in orbit, building a gigantic ship that wouldn't go anywhere.
Spent too much time looking and no time leaping.
Yeah, there you go.
Little did he realize
Little did he realize
that we are our best weapons against us.
we use our incompetence well. But anyway, so that's the lesson for the week that I learned.
Yeah.
Weight and mass matter in space.
Who knew?
I didn't. I apparently had no idea.
Yeah. I've had the issue of having something that was so big that RCS took a long time to move it.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, anything that I've like gone way out of the way to do, I've usually had barely enough instead of just enough.
Right.
So I haven't made any giant monstrosities. I guess that's why, those giant ships, like Star Destroyers and, all those, I guess that's why they had warp drives.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're in for a long little chug along.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, but anyway, so I'm putting the challenge out there to our listeners. And as soon as you get as far as you can with your one ship, if you manage to bring it back, email us or tweet us or let us know something. Ideally, we'd like to hear from you by Monday. But I'm curious how far people can go. You know what your challenge should be?
What?
Get a rollie on the mun.
All right, I'm going to try for it. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to try for it.
Yeah, I guess technically you have two. The listeners, you have two challenges. Do the how many planets in one flight?
Yeah.
And Nos wants you to alternately either you can do both if you want. Nos wants you to come up with variations on the rolling.
Make your own rollie. If you get a rollie on a mountain, do it.
Okay, so we're done with progress report. Let's take a break and we'll come back and read some letters.
And now let's get to your letters in this week's crew report.
And I have the first one.
Go for it.
I am going to follow up on the contest that I was talking about, the challenge. Not contest, but challenge. I told you that I would. I told you what the challenge was, and I told you what my progress was. Now I'm going to tell you what his progress was. Again, this is Shea Byram. The first thing he did was called the Jeb 9 lander. Number one, Jeb 9 lander construction complete. Lander preps for launch. Lander reaches Kerbin orbit. Then the Jeb 9.
Yeah.
Okay. Construction is complete. Jeb 9 preps for launch. Jeb 9 rendezvous with the lander. And then the Jeb 9, the whole thing, the lander and the whole thing. Now the whole thing is called the Jeb 9. The Jeb 9 reaches Mun orbit. Karimini and Barbald Kerman.
They're just going to be, listeners are now going to give us stories, and anytime they pick a Kerbal, they're going to pick them with the hardest to
because they've heard us struggle with all kinds of pronunciations. Kermany and Barbald Kerman stand proudly next to their flag on the Mun. Shea jumps a step here because the next entry is Kermany lost his grip on the ladder on Minmus. So obviously they left the Mun and they made it to the Minmus. And Kermany he was a heavy drinker and he fell off the ladder. Barbald insists on staying in the ship while Kermany takes his picture. The Jeb 9 lander runs out of fuel on its way to Moho. Time to get out and push. He says, congratulations to you and thank you for your podcasts. Breathe deep and fly high. You get to the next letter.
From D. Chapman. Hi, guys. Hey, Dean.
Hello.
Just wanted to say that I'm really enjoying your podcast. I've spent the last 2 days listening, beginning with episode 1. It's actually the first time I've ever listened to a podcast. Oh, thank you.
Oh.
So it's good that I came across a good one the first time. Oh, double thank
Yay.
you. Though I was surprised to find that you were the only guys doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Us too.
Yeah. I have not actually played the game in a long time, but I did reinstall last night and had a quick flight. Guess I'll be playing it a lot more now.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey,
good
squad, if you're listening, we're good for your sales, man.
We want a referral bonus.
There you go.
Anyways, the reason why I'm writing this is you guys mentioned the save revert option in games. I play a game called Mountain Blade. Oh, yeah, I have played that one. And in single player experience, I play for real. For reals, yo. I cannot save the game while I am playing, and when I quit, it saves the game for me. When I decide to start playing again, I hit load, and there's only one file to carry on from. No quick saves, no getting out of it. I have been captured many times, but you can't really die in the game, but there is a serious setback. Fame drops and loyalty going down, etc. Anyways, just wanted to say great stuff and keep it up. P.S. Great that you mentioned Civilization. Love that series, and I've been playing it since the first release.
That is such a good game. Our next letter comes to us from Italiman. And he says, "Hi guys, I made a small discovery about contracts. I'm probably not the first. Even though most test parts contracts say activate the part through staging, you don't have to. I had one that wanted me to test the mainsail engine on a suborbital at altitude 81,000 to 87,000. I right-clicked on some temporary contract parts during a mission and noticed a new button, Run Test. So I built a rocket with the mainsail as its primary engine, which means right at launch I activated it through the staging, but when I got to the desired height range, I cut the engine. Not sure if that makes any difference. You should probably keep it running. And right-clicked and then clicked Run Test, and the game gave me the contract. So I remember another person emailed you guys and said they thought a cool feature of the new contracts was figuring out how to get the bigger engines up so high for the part contracts and then activating them. Well, you don't have to figure that out. Just build a normal rocket and right-click, Run Test. Boom, the ship explodes, and contract complete, more funds to burn. P.S. My letter a couple of weeks ago about the mod feature, listening to the show. I'm not sure you guys are even remotely interested in mods, at least not at this point. As whenever they're talked about, it is briefly, and then you move on. And in episode 13, one email, the guy seemed happy that he avoided using mods. I think the way he said it was he didn't have to, quote, resort to using mods, like it's some kind of thing that is below him or some sort of stigma. That bugs me a lot. Still love the show and will keep listening, but it will be nice when it appeals to the full range of KSPers. Not primarily the mid to new players, but longtime players and mod-loving players as well. Keep up the good work." And then for you, Nos, we have a PPS. They just did a bump for Diarrhea Planet on Adult Swim last night. I was playing on my PC when I heard it. It made me chuckle. I will say, if we gave the impression that we're down on mods, my apologies. That was never our intent.
Yeah.
I tend not to play with mods, but it's not because I look down on them. I just, I've gotten so used to, like, for example, I installed the docking port alignment, and I was so used to doing it the other way that I uninstalled it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I mean, there are some useful mods, and I will say, if there is somebody who would like to send in some comments about mods, recommendations, or if you want to talk about it, if you'd love to, we'd love it if you could record some audio. Let's say about 60 seconds. You even had a name for it.
We call it Modder's Minute.
The Modder's Minute.
And just, and spend that time just telling, like, the quick and easy about a mod.
Yeah.
Just like,
yeah, we would love to hear from you. At this stage, we don't really mess with mods a whole lot.
Yeah.
But it's like what he said. I mean, we would like to appeal to as many people as possible. So if you could help us out, that would be great.
The reason I haven't touched mods is because I haven't even used all the parts in the game yet.
Right.
Like, I haven't unlocked an entire tech tree. Every time I'm moving up through it, like 0.24 came out, so I went back and started using that instead. And so I reset my tech tree. So I haven't even finished using everything yet.
Right.
So I don't want to start getting mods, and kind of like how whenever I first entered sandbox mode versus career,
Right.
I didn't know what to do with all this stuff. So that's the reason I haven't done too much with it. Now, there are other mods that make things more challenging, and I'm just not good enough to use them.
Yeah.
There's
There's one mod that I would absolutely, if I could figure out how to install that thing, because I have tried, I cannot figure it out. It's not one of those that you just drag the folder in.
Drag and drop it in.
You actually have to get in and start replacing, and I have yet to figure it out. There's one called, I think it's Roster Prop Monitor, but it's the one where it changes the display in your capsule. I would love to have that, and one of these days I'm going to figure out how to install it. But there have been so many times where I have, quote unquote, installed it.
Yeah.
And I have said, yes, I did it. And then I start the game and I go, no, I didn't.
Yeah. Now, a friend showed me ScanSat, and that one is pretty cool.
What is that?
That is where you actually map the planets. So you build a satellite with the part that comes with it, and it actually
it's kind of like the
Kethane.
Kethane, thank you.
So it's just for that, and it'll pick up any anomalies like the abandoned airfield as an
Right.
anomaly.
Right.
And so like you put a satellite up and you just build these maps of it. And that one was really cool looking. So I think I may do that one sometime because it doesn't really affect my progress reports or anything. And it's just an extra little thing I can do for fun. And
And if you could make that satellite roll on the ground,
yeah,
you'd be right on top of that.
And the other, another one that I was thinking about is fine print, just to have some more variance in the contracts.
Yeah.
And another way to avoid part testing.
You should read your next letter since you mentioned that.
Oh, I haven't read this one yet.
Yeah, go ahead, because there is a
This one comes from Jabster, who is a regular contributor. Thanks for writing again. I'd like to recommend the Deep Refund mod. It gives you money from stages which are destroyed by the render distance. It may have, if they have enough parachutes.
Right.
You got to remember those. I also use the small print mod, which
There you
adds a
go.
bunch of contracts including space station and planetary base building, asteroid recovery, air surveys of certain sites, great use for planes, etc. It's pretty cool, but it spams up your contracts pretty quickly. I got 3 identical contracts to build a space station around Kerbin. The requirements were the same, so I built one station and completed all 3.
Isn't that just perfect serendipity? You were talking about that.
Yeah.
And you had, that letter was
Yeah, I didn't
literally
know that was the
sitting
next
right
one.
in front of you. And I had read the letter before, so it's like when you said that, I thought, oh, this is too good.
I find contracts really help to fill the tech tree, which is really good considering I don't venture outside the Kerbin system much, and I don't do repeated landings. The refueling of the jetpack is not related to the level of monopropellant. Oh, yeah. We're asking.
Remember we
this.
talked about that.
Previously, the EVA fuel was an arbitrary percentage, but now a new EVA fuel resource is being used. You're correct about getting out and pushing. It's infinite free fuel. They're planning on removing that, though.
Yeah, that's you had asked me, just in case someone hasn't heard the previous podcast where we were talking about this. Nas had asked me, when you EVA and you use your jetpack, when you spacewalk and use your jetpack, he was asking if when you get back in the capsule, does it refill your jetpack? And I didn't know. So I checked it out, and yes, when you use your jetpack and then get back in the capsule and get back out, it does refill. My assumption was that it was refilling from the monopropellant in the capsule itself or on your craft. Thanks to Jobster, we now know that's not true.
Yeah.
So yes,
until they fix it.
Until they fix it. So if you run out of fuel, you literally can get out and push. It's going to take you a long time to get there.
And Jafster finishes with, I have a question for you, and I spotted it on the KSP forums. What would you consider a finale mission? Which would be the equivalent of a final boss fight? Would you complete and say, I finished career mode, the same way you can say you finished the tech tree?
Do you have a guess? Do you want to venture an answer?
Personally, I don't want there to be a finale because with this game, the thing is there's always stuff to do.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I want senses of completion. That's why I wanted science mode. That's why I wanted tech trees.
Right.
That's why I wanted contracts. I want this sense of accomplishing something. What I don't want, however, is to be like, oh, I'm done.
Right.
Because I can't tell you how many games I've beaten the final mission and said, forget the side quests.
Yeah.
It's like, I beat the final mission. I don't want to do the side quest. Okay, how about you? Do you consider a finale mission?
You know what I would love to see? The straight answer is not that there's a finale, but I have yet to go to every single planet and every moon. When I accomplish that, I think that's probably where I'll stop calling myself a mid-level player.
Yeah.
At that point, I'll probably go, well, now I'm more of an advanced player.
Yeah.
But the silly answer is if a silver guy on a surfboard came flying through and I had to fight like Galactus, that would be cool.
I was actually, while you're talking, I thought of a contract that would be kind of cool is to set up a colony on another planet.
Yeah.
Like,
I would. That's and I know that's one of the neat things about the fact that this game is still going.
Yeah.
Is to think of some of the things that will come along, and yeah, I would love to be able to like build moon bases and mine resources and do science missions on the ground, and and that stuff all may still be out there.
Yeah.
So it's the game itself is unlimited in terms of kind of what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
What's also nice is, since it's still in development, mentally it's kind of like unlimited in what it could be.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm always thinking of, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if, you know.
All right. What do you got?
Next letter. This comes from Keen Roberts. And it says, "Hey guys, I really enjoy the podcast. I first started playing KSP 2 years ago before it even came to Steam. Some guys in my dorm had gotten it and were playing it in the den, and they were trying to get to the Mun. Me, being the aerospace engineer that I was, decided that I could easily make it on a round trip to the moon and back." Those are always famous last words, aren't they?
Yeah.
That night, I spent at least 7 to 8 hours building rockets, launching, exploding, etc., till I finally did it. There was a rush of excitement as I set my landing pod on the surface and snapped a couple of pics for bragging rights. The biggest thing I remember when I first started playing was that space race. Even though the other guys had no idea I was competing against them, I was keeping tabs on their progress throughout the days and nights. I had put the game away for a while until I heard about your podcast.
Hey.
There you go. Squad, are you listening?
Give me a referral bonus.
Yeah, we want referral. You know what they'll do? Squad will go, every time somebody says that, we'll send you another copy of the game. It's like we could play like 5 or 6 different, we have 5 or 6 copies of it running at the same time on different systems. He says, "This has given me a renewed dedication towards the game that I haven't felt since that space race 2 years ago. I dig the quote, 'May you always have a star to steer by and enough fuel to get you there. Thanks.'" And that was Keen Roberts, and thank you very much for writing.
Hello and welcome to the very first Dark Mushroom's Dark Matter. My name is Dark Mushroom, and the object of this series is to tear back the inky black veil of doubt behind a core scientific, game-related, or space-related topic burning in the heart of the Kerbalcast community. First, a big thanks to Biff and Nos for encouraging this segment and giving me the green light to fill our green players with the knowledge they need to get their little green men beyond their humble green home. But what exactly is home, you may ask? Kerbin, the base of all major KSP operations, is a vast and, as dictated by your game mode, curiously unexplored atmospheric planet. At a circumference of nearly 4 million meters, it would take you about 16 real-life days of holding down the shift key and sprinting your Kerbal across the surface to make a round trip. So, you'll need to concern yourself with its 9 wondrous biomes and 3 additional biomes that make up the site of our Kerbal's singular profession and home. Right after clicking launch, you are free to explore the launch pad, runway, Kerbal Space Center, and the shore biomes, which are virtually on top of one another. Next, you may wish to tackle the grasslands, highlands, mountains, deserts, badlands, tundra, ice caps, and water biomes as your science needs and attention span dictate. It's important to note, to save you from the trouble that my Jebediah ran into early in his career, that though a biome may be geographically unique, say the North and South Poles, it is not necessarily unique in terms of science gathered. Well, that about wraps it up for Kerbin. Let me know what topic you'd like to hear more about by messaging me at darkmushroom87 on Twitter or by mailing kerbalpodcast@gmail.com with the subject line Dark Matter. And remember, in the famous words of John Glenn, we have an infinite amount to learn both from nature and from each other.
And we're back with our Kerbal News, this week's mission briefing. First story comes to us from Reddit, and this is from username T17389Z, which sounds like a student film from George Lucas.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. The headline on this was, "Starting a KSP club at my engineering school, need your help." And this was posted to the Kerbal Space Program subreddit. I wanted to throw a plug in.
Yeah, there you go.
Quote, "In my efforts to start a KSP club, I would like your help with making it appeal to the masses. Therefore, I need all that you've got. Catchphrases, pictures, anything. Thank you all, the Suncoast Community High School KSP Club." And these are some of the demented little catchphrases that users sent in.
I was wondering what direction it was going to go.
Oh, yeah. Conis Force says, "Like Armageddon, but much more realistic." "Learn orbital mechanics accidentally."
Yeah.
"Math you can actually use." "Precisely as hard as rocket science." And "you can tell your parents it's homework." Ad Astra says, quote, "Jebediah Kerman is your god. Bow to him now." And the last one,
right.
Croverman says, unleash your inner pyromaniac with KSP.
Aw.
Next story.
From the KSP website, Felipe, also known as Harvester,
Also known as the man.
Felipe, the Man Harvester, development of 0.25 has started and picking up a good solid pace. The massive cleanup from last week definitely did help there. The project not only compiles faster, but even more importantly, things are much more easy to find and everything seems to have a place, and one place only. This week we've settled the design for the new administration facility, and we're starting to develop the user interface and back-end systems to support it. We've got a monumental list of things to do ahead of us, though. It's going to be a huge amount of work, but it feels good to be working on something new again. Because they've been working to patch a whole bunch of stuff, so it's kind of nice to work on something new.
As George Carlin would say, a place for my stuff. Our next story, this comes from the website space.com. Researchers at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston have found that a space propulsion technology thought to be impossible might actually be possible after all. The so-called M drive, that's EM drive, is a microwave thruster system that generates a small amount of thrust by rocketing microwaves around in a chamber. Since it uses solar power and doesn't require any type of propellant, the M drive could make spaceflight considerably less expensive.
Texas is offering the private space company SpaceX more than $15 million in incentives to build a new launch facility in Brownsville. The state would offer $2.3 million under the Texas Incentive Plan, and SpaceX will also collect $13 million from the Spaceport Trust Fund.
That's an investment well worth it, I would say.
Well, just wait until somebody brings a rocket from New York City.
New York City! Well, that's our mission briefing and the latest news, and of course you know what that means. And now, another edition of As the Kerbin Turns.
Honey, I'm home!
Hello, dear. How was your day?
Oh, same as always. I took a protein pill and put my helmet on, but the stars looked very different and I floated in a most peculiar way. Say, the circuit's dead. Is there something wrong?
Tune in next time for another edition of As the Kerbin Turns. All right, she's back.
Yeah.
We actually got somebody tweeted last week. They said, we hope Mrs. As the Kerbin Turns comes back. She's hot. You know what I call her, don't you? She's our Carol Cleveland.
Oh.
Yeah. Somebody out there is going to get that joke. So
they're back together.
Yeah. They're back.
True love can overcome, can weather the mightiest storm.
Can overcome a failed bank account.
Yeah.
An empty bank account. Well, let's do But I Digress. And this week we're going to talk about one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite comedies, Galaxy Quest, which you have never seen.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched it this morning.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, and
that was so much fun.
The original Star Trek, I've watched that since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Watching Galaxy Quest, I mean, it has been called one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever. There are so many. It's like the more you know about Star Trek, the funnier Galaxy Quest is. And I will. I'm gonna throw out a warning right up front. There really is no way to talk about this movie without spoilers.
If you haven't seen it and you want a good laugh, go watch it and then listen to the rest.
Just
of this.
Put this on pause.
Yeah.
Go watch the movie and then come back.
Yeah. We'll wait.
Yeah, we'll wait. Hey,
okay, now
back.
Yeah, now time for Galaxy Quest. Thanks for watching the movie.
So, since you have not seen it, and you just saw it, what did you think?
I thought it was a ton of fun. Like whenever you're like,
it was tons of fun.
Yeah,
I thought I was tons of fun.
Whenever you were talking about it, I was like, when did it come out? And you're like in the 90s and stuff, and I was like,
99. I looked at
99. I was like, okay, well the humor may be a bit dated and stuff. No, it was just fun. It was silly fun. The premise of the movie is Galaxy Quest is the name of a show.
Right.
And you're following all the actors from the show. This is years after the show has ended.
And it's not a stretch to go from Galaxy Quest to Star Trek.
Yeah, it's pretty much the Star Trek.
I mean, it is so thinly veiled Star Trek.
In this world, it's Star Trek. So now all the actors are attending these conventions. Yeah. And they're so done with it.
And the fans are not Trekkies, they're Questerians.
Yeah. And and they're just like, they're at Galaxy Quest Con or whatever.
QuestCon.
QuestCon. And their fans they're just unbearable nerds.
Yeah.
And like these people, they're like, we just did this because we wanted acting jobs.
All right. And now we're stuck. We're typecast, and we can't get any more acting jobs.
And they seriously follow a lot of the characters from like they model a lot of their characters from Star Trek. So
well, George Takei has said that Galaxy Quest is not a comedy; it's a documentary.
Yeah.
For example, William Shatner. There's a scene in the movie where Tim Allen, who's playing the William Shatner character, goes into a bathroom at the QuestCon. And while he's in the stall, he overhears other people talking about what a bunch of losers. These guys can't get any more acting jobs. The William Shatner character, Jason Nesmith is the guy's name. Nesmith doesn't realize that all of his co-stars hate him.
Uh-huh.
And of course, that's the first time he catches on that they don't like him.
Yeah.
And that actually happened to William Shatner. One of the very first Star Trek conventions, he was in a bathroom stall and he heard somebody having that conversation.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, there's a lot of nods in there to what's really happening.
Yeah, very attentive writers and director for the movie. So yeah, you have that character. You have a character modeled after Leonard Nimoy, done by Alan Rickman.
How did I come to this? I played Richard III. I was an actor once. Damn it, now look at me. Look at me! I can't go out there and I won't say that stupid line one more time.
And now he's just stuck and typecasted in this role that he'll be in forever.
Dr. Lazarus.
Yeah, the cold, like logical, unfeeling doctor.
Do you know what I love about that though? As much as he hates being typecast as Dr. Lazarus, he has to wear there's an appliance that he wears on his head that gives him like this fins and whatever. But it's to make him look alien, but it's a headpiece basically. It's a headpiece appliance. Even though he despises being typecast as Dr. Lazarus, at no point in the movie does he ever take it off.
Yeah.
Even when he's at home.
Uh-huh.
Every time you see him in the movie, he's got that thing on.
Yeah, because it's funny. It's that whole show must go on. He's always in his role, even though he hates the role, for the sake of theater.
Yeah.
And then you have the Sigourney Weaver character, which models after Uhura.
Mm-hmm.
And she pretty much, she has no point except for being, sex appeal.
Yeah.
I just repeat whatever the computer says.
Yeah, that is her whole function on the show is she repeats whatever the computer says, she says it too.
Yeah. And
like any actor, she is not going to give up her lines.
Uh-huh.
But continue with the plot summary. These guys it was a sci-fi TV show that had been canceled years earlier.
Yeah.
Years before.
And they're still carrying on this thing. And Tim Allen's character, the Kirk character, the captain, he gets approached by some people he thinks are just dressed up and cosplayed as aliens. He's like, okay, whatever. And they keep saying, we need your help. You need to come with us. And he thinks he's going to a gig. And it turns out he is actually transported to an actual spaceship.
Yeah. He thinks that this is like a little fan film.
Yeah.
Like they've got some sets in a garage or something. And they're paying him to show up and play the captain. He doesn't realize that this is an alien society that has been watching the TV show. And they think it's real.
Yeah.
So they have recreated the spaceship and everything
in order to ask him for help because they're currently being, antagonized by this warlike alien race. And
Saris.
Yeah.
What makes the movie so good, as biting as the satire is, it is a spoof of an action adventure story.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it turns out to be a good action-adventure story. At some point in the movie, it actually starts to turn where they start becoming their characters. And it does kind of turn into a Star Trek-ish action-adventure story.
They become even more exaggerated versions of the characters they portrayed.
Well, I love when they're the second encounter. The first time they meet with Saris, and it's just the captain, just Jason Nesmith.
Yeah,
he doesn't know that it's for real, so he just fire everything, and he catches the guy off guard, and manages to actually, I won't say defeat him, but he actually manages to win the engagement. And so they bring him back, and of course he's thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. It's going to be the same thing again. And that's, okay, well, now he's going up against an actual general, and he gets his butt kicked. And the ship that they're on, the Protector, is, the thing is heavily damaged. But I said to you that I think one of the strengths of the movie is that even though it's a spoof of an action adventure story, it actually turns out to be a good action adventure story.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is very good about the film is that as biting as the satire is, and you got to admit they're pretty brutal on Star Trek fans, it also acknowledges that there is a side to it that is very good.
Yeah.
I think the Thermians, which is the name of the aliens that think all this is real, I think that the purpose they serve in the story, they are there as the ultimate fans. This to me is what really elevates this into great movie territory, okay? One of the running jokes throughout the thing, Dr. Lazarus has a catchphrase: by Grapthar's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, you shall be avenged. And the whole movie up to the end plays it as a joke. I'm not going to say that stupid line.
Yeah.
They're at an electronics store opening, and he has to say,
By Grabthar's hammer, what a savings.
Yeah.
and you can tell he's just about, I mean, he doesn't, if there's one thing he doesn't want to say, it's that line. He never ever wants to say that line again. Well, there's a Thermian who kind of attaches himself to him. Dr. Lazarus, you're my idol. I've based my whole life on you. You're kind of a father figure to me. Well, he gets killed. And as he's dying, he gets shot. And as he's dying, Dr. Lazarus, Alan Rickman, says to him, completely serious,
By Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, you shall be avenged.
and you can see the look on the guy's face, the Thermian, as he's dying. It's absolute joy.
Yeah.
The love that we have for our stories, because, I mean, human beings as a species, we have always loved our stories.
Yeah.
If you want to know anything about a culture, look at their stories, because stories tell you a lot about the people. And the Thermians are the ultimate super fans of this show. And I think the fact that they could take something that had been played for comedy, the entire movie, and make it to where you're almost on the verge of tears, make it so emotional and so moving, that is the mark of really good writing and really good storytelling.
Even though it ended up being real, it played out just like an episode of Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Like, it ended up being real.
Yeah.
Those aliens were real. And then it turns out everything was episodic, just like Galaxy Quest. So it was like kind of a full circle thing.
We have to talk about the Sam Rockwell character, because
I don't even have a last name. What's my last name?
Sam Rockwell plays a guy. His name is Guy Fleegman. That's his real name.
You don't find out his last name until the very end.
He was an extra on one episode of the series, and he was killed during the opening tease. He was killed before the opening credits even rolled.
Yeah.
His part was literally crewman number 6. And here he is hanging around QuestCon, trying to kind of siphon off a little bit of that fan love. Because, hey, I was on the, I got killed by the rock monster in episode 87.
Yeah.
His function in the story, if you really think about it, he's the one who's there to comment on the absurdity of what's going on. Because there's so many points in there where the actors seem oblivious to the fact that they're living an episode of Galaxy Quest. And he keeps, did you guys even watch the show?
Yeah.
Do you not realize
this is
what's about
the
to
episode.
happen?
This is what happens.
Yeah.
You did the exact same thing.
Yeah, he has some of the best lines. And that was the first time that I ever saw Sam Rockwell and was aware of him. And I was amazed at how good he was.
Yeah.
I also love there's a lot of elements in the thing that only make sense when viewed through the context of TV logic. There's a scene where they're trying to go through the quote bowels of the ship, and they come to this tunnel which has got all these big chomper, stompy,
the
crunchy grind.
stuff.
Yeah, the crushers. And Sigourney Weaver is yelling, there's no logical reason for this to be here. And Tim Allen is going, it's there because it's on the show. And she's going, I'm not doing this. This episode was badly written.
Yeah.
Another thing I should mention, this was Justin Long's first movie. He played the superfan Brandon.
Yeah, and I mean, his part was like, it was brief, but it was really good, you know? And it really showed the captain, like, he reconnected with his crew, and that was his reconnection with, like, the fans are important. Too. They're not a vessel that serves to make me feel important. They're important.
Well, and also and it goes back to what I said earlier, through Brandon, you see his friends. Well, I mean, his friends are all highly intelligent.
Yeah. And they're multiple ages, and like you would really think if they were into something else portrayed in a movie that they wouldn't be hanging out with certain other members of the group, but they all have this connected thing that they're big on.
My favorite Brandon scene is right towards the end. He's running out the door and he's got an armful of Roman candles.
Oh yeah,
and the mom is like, "Whoa, where are you going with the fireworks?" And he gives her a completely honest answer.
The protector got super accelerated coming out of the black hole, and it's like nailed the atmosphere at Mark 15, which you guys know is pretty unstable, obviously. So we're going to help Laredo guide it on the box ultra frequency carrier and use Roman candles for visual confirmation.
And he just rattles off this whole explanation, and she's sitting there oblivious, uncomprehending. You know, this is just the latest stuff that's coming out of her weird son that she doesn't get.
Yeah.
All right, dinner's at 7.
The line that gets me is the mom turns and looks at the dad, and of course the dad's rolling his eyes at this, and she says,
"Well, he's outside."
Which I could never, as a kid, I could never figure that out.
Yeah.
I was always like happily playing in my room, and then it'd be like, go outside.
Yeah.
It's good for you. And I was like, but why? I was having fun.
Yeah, I was the same way. I think it's so we could build up allergy resistance, so they didn't have to spend money on allergy medication. I think that's all it was for.
You've heard my expression. I have said this before. If outside was so great, they wouldn't have invented inside. So that's one of those. Every time I see that scene in the movie, and she goes, "Well, he's outside," I always think, yeah. Why? Who cares? He was happy in his room. Leave the kid alone. I guess that's a little projection, right? But anyway, Galaxy Quest. Highly recommend this movie. The more you know about Star Trek, the funnier it is. Even if you don't know anything about Star Trek, it is still a good movie. It still is hilarious. There are so many funny parts of this movie that we could literally do an entire podcast about this movie. I will also tell you, if you get a copy of this on DVD or Blu-ray.
Yeah, I did it.
Oh, did you listen? Okay.
Not all of it. No.
Well, of course. A little bit of that goes a long way. The Thermians have their own language. Do you want to try? Yeah, more or less.
Pretty much.
That's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's like close to that.
As a joke, you know that DVDs have commentary tracks. Usually they'll have like foreign language tracks, or they'll have commentary tracks, or
like
whatever.
Listen to it in French, or
or listen to the director talk about, well, in this shot, they actually recorded a Thermian language track.
Yeah.
For this movie, and it's not just one guy sitting there going for an hour.
Yeah.
It is. They literally have different actors.
I watched a scene where there's a Thermian talking for the captain. There's one for
they paid
each,
people,
like, different person.
They paid people to sit in a room for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And make Thermian noises.
And it was,
for the entire movie.
And you didn't really hear it repeating very much.
No.
So they they put effort into it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it was just
you know
one
what?
guy.
They either paid them or they had a cooler full of beer.
Yeah.
And the Thermian got more fluent as the hours went on.
Even if I would have never been credited, I would have totally been one of the Thermians doing voice acting. Like, just give me something.
Anyway, we strongly recommend Galaxy Quest. And that wraps it up for But I Digress, which also wraps it up for this edition, episode 14 of Kerbalcast. As always, we have a list of people that we want to thank. And Nas, I'll let you go first.
I only got one job on this lousy podcast, and I'm going to do it.
And you're going to do it.
And it's stupid, and I'm going to do it. We want to give a thanks to all of our listeners, including our regular contributors. We also want to thank the moderators for KSP and the Kerbal Academy subreddits. And all the music you heard is from Professor Soap. That's facebook.com/Professor Soap.
And also, we do want to thank Dark Mushroom for his new feature on the program, Dark Matter.
Yeah.
Which, if you recall, a couple episodes back, we were doing something called the Beginner's Minute, which was conceived of as being educational, and instead it ended up being just complete silliness.
Yeah.
This is Beginner's Minute with the silliness taken out and some actual information put in.
But you might actually learn something.
Yeah, you might actually learn something from Dark Mushroom. But anyway, thank you so much for sending that in. And again, anybody who wants to comment, send us some audio about mods. We would love to hear it. About 60 seconds would be great. We'll call it the Mod Minute.
Yep.
Just send it to our email address. It's kerbalpodcast@gmail.com. As always, you can get us on Twitter @Kerbalcast. Remember, we have a couple of challenges out there. Make rollies or swimmies or wedgies or wobblies or whatever.
Make a rollie and send me a picture.
Yeah. And also, how many planets can you land on in one single mission? And refueling is allowed. You have to make it back to Kerbin. You have to land close to the Space Center. Send us progress reports or send us screenshots. You have to land. You have to put a flag. Just let us know. That's the challenge. The challenge was given to us, and we're passing the buck. We're giving it to you too.
And we will say that any audio segments that you do give us, there may be some slight edits. We have to do that with letters too, just for time and content.
Right. Absolutely. And trust us, we are merciless in the way we edit ourselves.
Yeah.
So we'll edit you, but we'll probably be nicer to you than we are to ourselves. So anyway, well, that does it for episode 14 of Kerbalcast. As always, thanks so much for listening. I am your LMP, Lunar Module Pilot Biff Aldrin, our CMP, Command Module Pilot, the Thermian language track.
Nostromo.
Nostromo, I love it. May you always have a star to steer by and enough fuel to get you home. Until next time, happy Kerbaling.
That's good stuff.
And then he sits on the stump. Well, it's oh, I lost my train of thought.
It's now time for the crew report, where we read your It's now time for the crew report, where we read it. Listener letters from the crew report.
Yeah.
Karimini.
I'm coming up with
Do it.
I've forgotten it already. Kermini.
Okay.
Kermini
Cricket. There we go.
Kermini Cricket. Yeah, I'm just going to say Kermini, and that may be wrong, but you know what, Kermini? If you have a problem with it, write to me, okay? Croverman says, unleash your Croverman says, unleash your inner. Croverman says, unleash your inner. We're going to have lots for the blooper reel this time.
Oh, same as always. I took a protein pill and
Nos the beatbox.
The circuit's dead. Is there something wrong? Say, the circuit's dead. Is there something wrong? Say, the circuit's dead. Is there something wrong?
Say,
the circuit's dead. I was like, I'm going to say it. Say, is there something wrong? Can you hear me, Major Tom?